CV88 is a Chicago company first and foremost. Their company mission is to ensure that all people have the opportunity to thrive in the electrical industry. They do this by educating, sponsoring, and hiring those from disadvantaged areas.
Okay, Miss Walton, could you talk for us, please?
Provide by their generous sponsorships awarded to high school students enrolling in the IBEW Union Apprenticeship Training Program. CV88 is a DBE, MBE, WBE certified company truly making a difference.
The radio was very loud.
Yeah, okay.
This
is another day.
And in our larger community. Learn more at Chicago.
Okay, I can hear on the Facebook.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, let's have a great show, everybody.
But I knew I had to be strong.
Oh, boy.
I was told about John's injury. I was in complete shock. I just remember rushing into his room and giving him a big hug and letting him know.
Good morning, Robert and Dave and everybody.
Of the heroes we serve at Homes for Our Troops. For thousands of severely injured veterans, everyday life is filled with barriers.
It was really the little things around the house. Counters that you can't roll up to. How to drag my wheelchair down steps.
I want to help, but he is so determined.
Okay.
At Homes for Our Troops, we build specially adapted custom homes with features like wheelchair access, roll-in showers, and automatic door openers that allow them to function independently.
Okay,
Focus
great.
on their recovery and family.
This house is freedom. It's hope. It's a new
Hey,
beginning.
everybody.
This house has given me my family back.
To learn more, visit hfotusa.org.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
If you're interested in buying a home in the near future and you're looking for a real estate professional that's going to have your back, we bring them on the air right here at the Home Buyers Hour. Every Saturday morning at 6 o'clock, we're going to have some of the best real estate agents, attorneys, mortgage brokers, and myself, a home inspector, right here on WCPT AM 820, where the facts matter.
Let me see, who do I
I'm Dr. Anthony Lazowitz, and this is Climate Connections. As the climate warms, Cincinnati, Ohio is getting hotter and wetter, but some residents suffer more than others from heat and flooding. Because of historical housing practices that worsen segregation and disinvestment, low-income residents and people of color are more likely to live near roads and factories. These areas often lack trees and green spaces that provide cooling and absorb stormwater.
All right. Hey, Dave. Hey, Barbara Bacon. How are you all today? We're going to have Commissioner Brandon Johnson on with us today, as we had Mr. Vallis on last week.
Savannah
We'll be
Sullivan
able to
is
hear
Umbrella, Greater Cincinnati's
his
Regional
thoughts.
Sustainability Alliance. Her group is part of the Climate Safe Neighborhoods Partnership.
How about
The mission
that?
is facilitating climate advisory groups in 8 neighborhoods. These groups of residents draft climate action plans that show where trees, cooling stations, and other solutions are needed.
And so it's a way of elevating
Okay.
lived experience and expertise of those who are on the front lines in their neighborhood directly into local planning and project mechanisms.
To better protect people as the climate warms. Climate Connections is produced by the Yale Center for Environmental Communication. To hear more stories like this, visit climateconnections.org.
60 seconds, everybody.
Okay. Standing by. Thank you, Miss Pam. Sending you much love. And we'll get right to
Well,
it.
there was this one time I went
Okay.
camping with my parents.
All right.
Maybe like 8 or 9. And I can remember one night we were laying out in our hammocks and we were just, watching the trees rustling in the wind above us, and we could hear the sounds of the forest all around us. Frogs singing and owls calling and a creek running nearby. It was amazing. It felt like we were a part of it all. I don't know if I do it justice trying to describe it, but I'll definitely never forget it.
Most of us have a memory of being in nature we'll never forget.
10 seconds.
The world's natural places, so more memories can be made for generations to come. Visit worldwildlife.org.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. Oh, yes, we can. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Monday, March 13th, 2023. We have a great day. We're going to be talking with Commissioner Brandon Johnson, one of the two candidates for mayor. Who will become mayor April 4th? We want to know. We want to know what his stands are on the issues and, you know, what he envisions for Chicago. A lot of questions about defund the police. A lot of questions about taxes. Will they be rising? He says no, they won't. And he says, I'm not trying to defund the police. What I'm trying to do is take the funding for the police, perhaps add to it, and add some other people who can support the police. So we've got a lot to talk about today on the Santita Jackson Show with a tremendous panel that's going to do the lead-in to this discussion with Brandon Johnson, Commissioner Brandon Johnson. And, of course, we have Dr. Shanita Knighton going to be talking to us about the latest about our health, and then, of course, I want to call her pastor, but she certainly is a great woman of God, Pam Morris Walton. So let's get right to it, everybody, on the Santita Jackson Show. I think it feels like winter has returned, right? Oh, my gosh. When will we get the spring? In Chicago. July. Everybody in Chicago, we're going to have a high of 34 degrees today and snow showers. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 28 degrees. Mostly cloudy. In the NBA, the Bulls had the night off. The Timberwolves will be playing the Hawks tonight, and they had the night off, and they will have the night off. And in the NHL, the Coyotes are triumphant over the Wild, 5-2 for everybody. Wow, 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 wow. What about this bank collapse? President Joe Biden plans to address the American people this morning about his administration's emergency response to the failure of two banks over the past few days. This comes after tech lender Silicon Valley Bank collapsed Friday in the second largest failure of a financial institution in the U.S. history. They had $170 billion, $151 billion were not insured. The federal government, though, has stepped in to make everything right for everybody. The Biden administration yesterday guaranteed that those impacted by the collapse of this bank will get their money back starting today. In a related action, the government shut down Signature Bank, which was teetering on the brink of collapse in recent days. Wall Street investors were relieved by the intervention after markets tumbled late last week. One wonders why we can't do that for students. But I digress. Residents in storm-battered California are bracing for another atmospheric river event on Monday, with many areas still flooded from heavy rains last week that caused extensive damage and at least 2 fatalities. It's the 11th such river event to hit the United States the western United States this winter weather season. Oil drilling. President Biden is also expected to announce a sweeping new set of protections for federal lands and waters in Alaska. How many of you watched the Oscars last night? It was an historic night. Indeed, the 65th annual awards were presented last night in L.A., and you saw Michelle Yeoh, journeywoman actress, brilliant actress, who was presented the Oscar by Halle Berry. They are the only two women of color to win Best Leading Actress in the Best Leading Actress category. Blessings to her. She's been at it a long time. Her co-stars and Jamie Lee Curtis, daughter of Tony Curtis. That's right, took home the Best Supporting Actor and Actress trophies respectively. And it was quite a night, an historic night in which you saw the Asian community come forward, and God bless them. They certainly are deserving. And those are just some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show, but we have got one of my personal favorites, indeed one of yours, our gospel sister, Pam Morris Walton. What is she going to be talking to us about? One day we're going to get her on here to talk about this wonderful book. You know, she is a heart transplant recipient. Cannot wait to hear from her talk about her book, 57 Days, Wait for a New Heart. The anointed, the blessed, who always blesses so many people every time she says, I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Pam Morris Walton, how you doing today?
I am wonderful, and you are right. I do love you, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. Good morning, Santita. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. We are going to talk today briefly about words heal. Three words. Words can heal. So when I say that to all of our wonderful, Santita's wonderful audience, remember to watch your words. Using these words and phrases can increase your chance for success and your chance for happiness. Words can heal. I am special. Say it often. I am unique. I feel good about myself. I keep my commitments. I am beautiful. I have a purpose. I am significant and needed. I am loved. I am responsible and I am strong. I'm willing to learn. I expect great things to happen. Positive words affect your health, reduce stress, and create peace of mind. And I've got to say that one more time. Positive words affect your health. I know about health. Reduce your stress and create peace of mind. You attract into your life what you radiate, what you think, what you say, what you give and love. Words can heal. That's it. Have a great day.
That's a whole lot. We focus on the fact that words hurt. But you know, guess what, everybody? Words absolutely heal. Let me ask you this, because you know, when you say that words heal, I've seen a lot of people, as they are, maybe they're conscious that they're transitioning, maybe not. But it seems that people want to make things right just before they get out of here. You know, upon reflection, when I think about the people I've known who have made their transitions, I've gotten a phone call from them, or I've seen them, and they've done something that indicated to me that they were trying to, if you will, make things right. And they always say something healing, even if you've had the most disagreeable of relationships. They become much more gentle. Have you noticed that? It just seems that people want to make things right, and they don't want to be unloving and unkind. When Reverend Evans' eldest child, Diane, was making her transition, I lived in New York at the time, and I flew in to see her because I'd known Diane all my life. And she was holding my hand, and she said, just speak words of love. Just remember, you gotta love everybody. She said, and maybe just because she called me Dumples. She said, Dumples, remember, just love.
Beautiful.
No matter what people do to you, just love.
Love. So let me tell you this, Santita. Health challenges. More time. Health challenges will take you there. That's what I have to say. Health challenges will take you there. You will make calls. You will do things. You will write. You will do a number of things that you never thought in your lifetime you would do. But health challenges, whatever they might be, will take you there.
Is it because you become aware of your mortality? What is it? Is it because of physical pain?
You woke up. You woke up to the fact that you're seeing things differently. You've not been there before. You have not been there before. You've been fine. You've been all right. You've just lived life and enjoyed things. But now something else has come in. That's what I'm telling people about dementia. When they're going through that. A lot of people and in their families are going through that. And they say, I'm tired, I'm sick, Pam. I say, honey, it's not them. It's the health challenge. It's the disease. It's something that has taken over and taken charge. So when I say what I say, I'll take it back to this. When people do that, sometimes they know they're feeling something within and say, I got to get this thing right. I gotta do this because see, I don't know none of us know our time.
Mm-hmm.
None of us know our time. Yesterday, I'll say this quickly to you. Yesterday, I was leaving from church with my husband, and we stopped, and we always go straight up 22nd Street, and all of a sudden, the road is blocked. And the road is blocked, so we can't get where we're going to eat. We can't get where we're going, so he has to cancel the reservation. We stop somewhere else. We're looking out the window, and we're going like, what is going on? Guess what? They had an accident, and it was fatal. They shut the whole street down for hours. For hours, not 1 hour, not 2 hours, not 3 hours. We don't ever know. Some people do know. They're experiencing health challenges. That person that had that accident, they woke up that morning. There's no way in the world that I believe they thought that they were going to die yesterday. We couldn't even get home for an hour and a half because they blocked the streets. But yet, when people are in their last days or something similar to that, and they know that, there's something that comes over you. They make phone calls. They do things different. They get it right. That's it. I love you.
I love you. I just wish we'd get it right before that time. Boy, life could be so much more pleasant if we could just be kind to each other. It would just...
In a world where you can be anything, be kind.
Ooh,
Every day.
Okay.
Every moment.
In a world...
Okay, I'm finished. You got to go on.
I love you. No. I asked you. In a world when you can be anything, everybody, be kind. I've got to give you the credit for that. In a world when you can be anything, be kind. Which is why I try to conduct things on this show the way that I do. Here on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station at AM 950 Radio, with the voice of progressive Minnesota. You know, we can be anything.
You go, girl.
It's nice to be nice, though. My pastor, Reverend Clay Evans, used to say that. And in a world when you can be anything, choose kindness. Just, it's your choice. It's your choice. Just be kind. Just be kind. Be kind. I love you, Pam Morris Walton, everybody, the author of the book, 57 Days, Wait for a New Heart. 57 Days, Wait for a New Heart. 57
days. Spiritual journey of truth and of love and faith. The full title. The Wait for a New Heart sparks a spiritual journey of faith and love.
Very quickly, how did that change you?
Oh my God.
When they told you you needed a new heart, what happened?
I didn't know. I didn't know what they were talking about. I didn't know I was that bad off. I didn't know something had happened to me. It got me. I was spellbound. I'm going like, what? I asked them to leave the new room. I asked the doctors to leave the room. And I just looked at my husband, and Frank said, I'm with you. That's a true story. And then it goes on from there.
Well, you got to come on and talk about it, because I can only imagine.
We would do it.
You know, the older you get, and you have to wait.
Yeah.
You know, you expect a great report from your doctor, but sometimes they can take too long to get back to that examination room, and you have to go. Wait a minute, what's going on? Wait, hold on. Wait a minute. Think about that, everybody.
Not a stent, not a pacemaker, but a heart. And to get a heart, somebody has to die, Santita. Somebody has to die for you to get a heart. Oh, boy. Bye. I love you.
I love you. Think about that, everybody. Okay. In a world when you can be anything, be kind. All those blessings you put out there came back to you on that day, and your work wasn't done, moreover. So that's what that is.
He gave me a second chance at life. He gave me a second chance. He wanted me to stay here for some reason. I guess I was to be with you.
Well, me and everybody else, and I want to thank you for that.
I'm happy. Thank you. I wrote my story that I lived 57 days in the hospital. 57 days. I'm a miracle because the heart came in 27 days. Okay, I'm going to stop. You've got to go on with your program.
No, that's a lot. I just, sometimes you just have to go with spirit, really, always.
Yeah,
And it just hit me today because I have lost over the past year, year and a half, three foundational friends. I mean, people who you call and say, can you believe this? I mean, the people who know you so intimately. I've got to go to a funeral in South Carolina on Wednesday. And I miss my friends.
I'll give you safe travels.
Oh, thank you. But I miss them. I really, I don't have that many people. No one does. But I really, in my lifetime, I've never really had anyone I could trust. And these are three of the most trusted friends in my life. And they are now with the Lord. And it's, it's been hard. Because I said, wow. I used to talk to you. I said, well, maybe God's giving me new training because now I have to talk to God much more. much more. So,
yeah, but you can live on those fond memories, Santita.
Oh, I do. No.
Fond memories.
I know they're done.
Yeah, they'll come to you in the spirit. Because that's what my aunt does. She comes to me in the spirit world. It's real.
I believe it. And, and I believe, and their work is done. And, when your work is done, that's it. I get it.
Yes, it is.
Oh, boy. When I woke up from my surgery, I said, okay, clearly I've got something else to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look at you.
Yeah. Two of them, because we thought I had congestive heart failure. That was before I had my weight loss surgery. And so I said, well, okay, clearly I have something else to do. Okay. So Lord, just guide me and let me be about the business of that. So, I mean, this is not wasted time, Pam Morris-Walton. I just, we talk about health in this moment, but the fact is you had the health challenge of a lifetime. You needed a new heart. How many of us have to face that? And I remember seeing you and your husband as you got off that plane. And all I could do at Midway Airport, because we were at the last terminal, if you recall, and we had a long way to walk.
All the way at the end.
All the way at the end. And all I could do was drop back and pray. Because I saw you determined. I saw you were determined. And I said, oh boy, God just bless her and just carry her. And look at you now. No one would ever know you had you got a heart transplant. My Lord. But I want you to come on, and we're going to just have a conversation about that because I repeat, so many of us are afraid to be donors, and black people in particular have been so abused in slavery. We were medical experiments. We were the subject of medical experiments, and it never stopped. There's something called the Mississippi appendectomy. Black women would go in for routine exams, and they would be sterilized. And it happened so routinely. It happened to Fannie Lou Hamer. It was called the Mississippi appendectomy. So we've been sterilized. We have been abused. And when we feel pain, the medical establishment still does not believe that we feel pain to the extent that we do. So we have to talk about donating and being a donor. We have to talk about those things because, our fears need to be allayed.
I'm a living witness. I'm a living witness that a donor works. I'm a living witness. Look at me. Hear me. I am a living witness. Yes, I am. It may not be a lot of them, but things have changed. Some things have changed. My donor saved 7 lives. I got the heart. Okay. All right. You got to go on with your program.
We are. No, but I think a lot of people, Dave just said that his father lived with congestive heart failure and died in his 90s, but he lived with it for decades. It was painful. And people are sending you much love today, a lot of them. And I just want you to know that a lot of people love you, and your testimony has been powerful and healing for people today. So thank you for that. Laura Bell says, glory, hallelujah, yes. Jewel says, amen.
Thank you.
And amen and amen. Everybody get the book.
Amen.
Get the book, 57 Days, Wait for a New Heart. You need to do that. Get it. Let's
Go
get
to-
it so that we
go
can
to
talk about it.
PamelaSpeaks.com and get it.
Go where?
That's right. Or go to Amazon. Just get it.
Amazon?
Go to PamelaSpeaks.com or go to Amazon, yeah?
Okay.
And get the book.
Okay, get the book, everybody. Get the book. Get the book. Get the book. I love you, Pam Morris Walton, and I love you and your
Safe
husband.
travels.
Blessings
Thank
to you.
Safe travels to where you have to go. Safe travels, and God be with you, and we'll see you when you get back. Okay, sweetheart?
Yes, ma'am. Love you so much.
All right. And love you.
Everybody, let's talk about this mayoral race. Let's talk about it. That was time well spent, I believe. My apologies to Dr. Shanina Knighton, but, many of us could be donors, but we're reluctant. And we're going to talk that through because you have every right to have every reservation, given how we have been treated. And you see the contempt with which all people are held. Look at what's happening to the people in East Palestine, Ohio. Think about that. These are white, working-class people, many of whom are poor. They're not being treated with any love and respect. So it's not just a color thing, it's a kind thing. It's not your color, it's your kind. What kind of person are you? And in a world when you could be anything, be kind. Or as Otis Redding said, try a little tenderness. I'll be back with more of the Santita Jackson Show. Let's talk about this mayoral race. Call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Who you got in this race? Vallis and Johnson? The race is getting real tight. Let's talk about it on the Santita Jackson Show. Oh, Stanley, it's not a dismal day. It's a beautiful day. The sun is on the other side of the clouds. As a matter of fact, the sun will be coming in here in a little bit. Did you all miss that hour of sleep this weekend? Oh my word. Did you? I don't like losing that hour. I really, just give it back. Give it back to me. Give it back. Oh, I want my hour of sleep. But what do you think about this mayoral race? What do you think about this mayoral race? I mean, really, it is exciting and it is changing constantly. We have been reporting, certainly I have, that Vallis has had a solid lead, but Brandon Johnson keeps chipping away at it. Every week, it just appears that he goes from strength to strength to strength. Why do you think that is? Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT, and let me know who you got in this race, what it is that you are looking for. Brandon Johnson, he's the only one who's held elective office, and he is someone who I like very much. But that having been said, I will treat both of these gentlemen with respect and with a healthy amount of criticism. That is, in loving critique, asking them, what do you mean about your criticisms of critical race theory and your support of the privatization of schools and law and order, Paul Vallis? What do you mean about defunding the police, Brandon Johnson? I mean, are our taxes going to go up? I mean, talk to me. What do you mean? I think we need to ask those questions and have them answered. That having been said, but there is a very real choice. You have someone who's fought in the public sector for those in the public sector where everybody is in and nobody goes out. And you fought for someone who has been really an operative of the corporations. Think about that. What does that mean? And do you want someone who applies the corporate model, who wants, I guess he would corporatize our government? Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Oh. You have Dr. Knighton on hold?
Not anymore. She dropped off, but I got your text to call her. That time I called her and she answered.
Oh, yeah. No, I'll call her later. It's just after a certain point, I'm at the point of no return.
As I figured. I got your text late then, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm. Everybody get Pam Morris's book, 57 Days, Wait for a New Heart. It will bless you. Yeah, Robert, I missed my hour today, too. Oh, boy. And then I had a long day. Yesterday, it was a beautiful day. Beautiful day. I went to hear Pastor Stephen Thurston preach, and boy did he preach at his home church, New Covenant. His family have built that pulpit, and they've held on to it for 88 years, almost 100 years. His grandfather, his father.
All right, sending Shapiro, Reverend Wilson, Attorney Connolly, Xavier Nagaris, and Reverend Thurston through. Dwight McKee didn't answer. I'll try to get him once we come back.
Okay, perfect. Thank you
We're
so
down
much.
60 seconds.
Okay, appreciate it. Xavier, how you doing this morning?
I am doing well. My cup of Puerto Rican coffee because I'm usually not up this early. So.
That crude, my brother's wife is, Jonathan's wife is Jamaican.
Oh.
And honey.
That's some good coffee there, too.
Look, y'all down there, whew. I mean, I'm like, this is not coffee. This is oil.
Don't say it.
What the? Woo. I said, I can't get enough. But you know what? I love Cuban coffee because it's all creamy. And sweet. Yeah. Now, see, I love that. What y'all got going is just a little bit, it's a little too strong for me. Woo!
Yeah, that's why we talk really fast.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Stand by, everybody. It's too much. Oh, it's too strong. Well, they said, the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice.
Change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
To a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. In the next hour, we're going to have Commissioner Brandon Johnson, as we had Mr. Paul Vallis on Friday. Who will be the mayor? Who you got? It turns out that Paul Vallis and Commissioner Brandon Johnson are closing. The gap is closing. Brandon Johnson is gaining in this race. Why do you think that is? I want you to call me at 773-763-9278. One of our guests, Xavier Nogueras, who I have known since he was a kid. Well, I was a young adult, but he was a teenager working on Reverend's campaign. Whew, my goodness. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I just, oh boy, bless his heart, ran for delegate and all of that. He was 17, about to turn 18. One of our true soldiers. I'm so glad that he's with us today with this magnificent panel, but he's leading us today as he has been asserting, look, you got to have high black voter turnout no matter what. There is just a lot that we have got to really tease out if you want Brandon Johnson to win. And there's a stark choice in this race, really. Corporatism, populism. It really comes down to. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT, and let's talk about this today on the Santita Jackson Show. But first up, Shapiro, what's going on? Can we get some food from you?
Absolutely, Santita. Yes, the celebrations by us. We are your one-stop party connection, and we are still serving food. So please give us a call at 708-526-4546, 708-526-4546. We are currently booking for your prom celebrations. That includes your sweet tables, your balloon arches, your custom banners, as well as also your name tables. So call us at 708-526-4546, 708-526-4546. We look forward to serving you. Thank you so much, Santita.
Blessings to you. All right, everybody, let's get right to it. Who do you have for mayor? I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Who do you think is going to win? Joining us today, of course, Attorney Erin Connolly, part of the family here, brilliant political strategist and organizer and activist. And we have got, of course, Reverend Jeanette Wilson from Rainbow Push, the director of the Push Excel program, and the pastor of the Maple Park United Methodist Church. And we're going to have Dwight McKee shortly. But we also have someone who I have known as he was really kind of pricking my consciousness. We've got Reverend Stephen Thurston from New Covenant Baptist Church. Of course, I heard him preach yesterday, and he was fantastic. And it was so wonderful to see him in that home church. That pulpit is 88 years of age. They're going on 100 years, and they have the Thurstons have been such a blessing to us down through the years. His father was the president of the Progressive Baptist Convention. We have three major religious conventions in the black church, and they roughly have about 2.5 million members apiece. And Reverend Stephen Thurston, his father, was the president of one of them, the Progressive Baptist Convention, which really came into being in response to the civil rights movement, because when Dr. King became very active in the civil rights movement, the National Baptists really wanted him out. Oh, but that's another story. But I want to begin things today with Xavier Nogueras. He is the president of the Boca Media Group, but it goes much, 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 much further. I had to be reminded that he was one of these very, very young people. He wasn't even 18 when he was traveling around the country trying to get people to vote for Reverend Jesse Jackson, getting young people registered to vote, and even running as the youngest delegate. No one had ever seen a 17-year-old run to become a delegate to the National Convention, but he said, I will be 18 and I am going to run. And he has gone on to build this magnificent media career, Reverend Wilson and Aaron and Dwight and Reverend Thurston. And I wanted to start things off with him today because, of course, 4 years ago we were all supporting Chuy Garcia, and we were waiting to figure out if he was going to run. Is he going to run? And, it came in real late to the race. I think that was to his detriment. But he's still serving in Congress, and we're so glad about that, of course. Congressman Garcia has been one of the pillars of the progressive movement, because I remember him in our presidential campaign as well. And I don't want people to forget that, because people were questioning his bona fides as a progressive, and that was not fair, and it was untrue. But Xavier, you have been working with Commissioner Brandon Johnson, and one of the things that you have been talking about is the importance of turnout. And from your experience, transfer your experience with the Jackson campaigns to this one, because many people don't know that Reverend didn't get millions of votes from inside the party. He registered people and brought them to the party, and you were part of that effort.
Yeah, I remember, hard to remember. I mean, it was such a while back. And by the way, Santita, it was just awesome yesterday when we reconnected.
Yes.
And all those memories flowed. But, it's interesting because, there's sort of like these mixed feelings about, like, we talk about, like, for example, the Harold Washington times and those times. And then you have folks saying, oh, well, that was the past, and we have to talk about, what's happening now in the new. But, it really is happening again, and I think those who are kind of the detractors of that is more because they're kind of scared of what can happen, and you're seeing it happen now. I do want to clarify something, though. I am actually here. I'm a political consultant. I own Boca Media Group. We're one of the big political media firms. Been trying to elect progressive candidates for the past 15 years. I'm not on Brandon's team. I'm not working on any mayoral campaign, so I kind of come here, looking at both kind of fairly. But when I say fairly, the truth is the media hasn't been fair to Brandon.
Why do you say
and
that?
With all that, he's been able to. Well, it's a lot of this is about, like, people build perceptions, right? And they build perceptions when they look at polling. If you look at where Brandon was in the beginning, you would think he didn't have a shot, right? And if you hear the media, they would think Brandon was dead in the water from the beginning, and yet look at where he's at. And part of the problem here is that, look, as a political consultant, I believe in polling. I also understand where polling can go wrong. And where polling can go wrong is, for example, especially when you look at, like, youth voter, when you look at young voters, when you look at the fact that, like, Chicago isn't just, like, black, white, Hispanic, there's Asian, there's Muslim. When you look at the white vote, it isn't a white vote, right? You have Northwest voters that are more conservative. You have lakefront voters. You have white women with higher income who you would think would be a little more conservative, but if you mess with their ideal of choice, then they turn on you, right? I mentioned that because we're going to come back and talk about that, right? a lot of white women in the lakefront with upper income, you would think they're going to go with Vallis, and they're beginning. Some of them maybe supported Vallis are turning on him now. They're beginning to see that Brandon is a candidate that is really true to his values. And so a lot of these things sometimes are hard to see when you're polling folks. And so you have to really look at the different coalitions that are being put together, because that's what really Chicago is about, right?
I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. What do you've seen at the, you're right, in the beginning, no one gave Brandon Johnson a shot, but he has continued to grow week after week after week, because people were surprised to see him become a top-tier candidate, a contender. Yeah. And then, now it's him and Vallis. And then they said, well, Vallis has this huge lead, and it appeared to be not insurmountable, but certainly a big one. But the polls are now showing the lead has been shrinking. What is going on?
Vallis, at the end of the day, yes, he solidified his base, and the base is a certain number, and it's big, right? That northwest side, conservative, a white Democrat, southwest side. But at the end of the day, there's a ceiling there. So if you look at it, you see Vallis, who was able to leverage. And by the way, when the numbers first came in, Vallis was at about 34. Brandon was at about 20. Brandon's lead now has grown to about 22, and Vallis is now at about 32 point something after the early vote came in, right? So even that lead shrunk. But Vallis has a ceiling. Brandon, on the other hand, has a potential of gaining the unification, right, of the black vote. He has a potential of, younger Hispanics. He has a potential of, really being a different choice. Again, I keep on mentioning white women in the lakefront, right? So that vote was split. And so, yeah, Vallis did get 33%, but he didn't get 50%, right? He needs another 18% to get there, and Johnson has a larger ceiling, right? And I think that's what we're beginning to see, and that undecided voters, a lot of them are Latino, a lot of them are, again, white women on the lakefront, and as the black vote consolidates, you're going to see a lot of that ceiling. They're not going to look at Vallis as the choice. And I got to tell you, Brandon has ran such a smart campaign in really letting folks know who Vallis is. You're talking about a candidate who, wants to try to claim that he's Democrat, and yet, 4 years ago was really proud of the endorsement he got from the Chicago GOP, right? Those tweets are coming out now. And Brandon is doing a really good job at kind of telling the truth. But then you got that other story of these young elected officials, a lot of them Latino, by the way, on Chicago's north side, who delivered. I'm looking at this map. I wish you could see this map. I'm looking at this map of, you would never think you would see this. You look at the north side, and it's yeah, it's half blue for Vallis, but it's half red for Brandon. You see, I'm looking at this map. He won the 1st ward, the 26th ward, a predominantly Latino Puerto Rican, the 35th ward, mixed Latino, 33rd ward. He won the 47th, the 46th, the 48th, the 40th, the 49th. I'm not talking about South Side ward. All these wards I mentioned are North Side ward. I'm looking at this map of all these wards that Lightfoot won, and Brandon's going to win these wards. And you start to see that potential, and I think the media has been, pretty, I don't want to say dishonest, but I really don't think, I think they see that percentage that Vallis had, but they're not looking at the potential, and now we're beginning to see that growth.
Xavier Nogueras, I'm so proud of you. And you've just become this, not just a media giant, but just a real political expert. Let me go to you, Reverend Stephen Thurston, some people we've not really heard enough from. Reverend Thurston, what do you see?
Well, I'm hearing a one-trick pony when it comes to Dallas. Of course, we know that crime is an issue, and the whole tough on crime language is all I'm hearing from him. When I look at Brandon, I'm hearing him deal with diverse issues that plague our city and specific plans that he's producing and presenting to make it happen. I think Brandon could do a little bit better job, however, as it relates to pushing back against the tough on crime positioning that Dallas is taking. When you really dig into what's happening in the city of Chicago, you'll discover that we've got one of the lowest clearance rates as it relates to homicides in the country, around 45%. But then when you peel that layer back deeper, 21% of homicides are solved in black communities, 45% are solved in white communities. So we got a $1.7 billion budget, but we got the lowest clearance rate in the country. What are we really talking about? What are we paying police to do? Our communities are over-policed yet underprotected and underserved. You got personnel has decreased by 5% in the past 5 years. In the police department in Chicago, 50% of the homicides and 85 to 90% of non-fatal shootings go unsolved, yet the department's budget continues to increase. What are we talking about? And so I think Brandon could do a little bit better job of exposing this data, because data doesn't lie. The data and these fact points as it relates to this tough on crime agenda that Dallas seemingly is only pushing because we're not hearing any other of the issues and the root causes being dealt with by his campaign strategy.
Wow. I mean, now, Aaron, I think that would be the brilliant way to present this, to push back on the defund the police argument, label they try to put on him, that the black community are in particular over-policed, underprotected, underserved. And you don't solve the murders in our community. Aaron Connolly.
Well, and the reality is for folks, when I'm at the doors, which I am still, I hear that folks are more focused on, hey, if something does happen, why am I waiting an hour to talk to an officer? If something serious happened, why am I waiting weeks to follow up with a detective? And why am I calling over and over again? Why can't I get help from the alderman's office? Why is it so hard to have a real public safety system that's serving our residents, right? And so when we look at the data, and I'm glad we're talking about it in that way because it's important. So over 30% of the calls to police are mental health or domestic violence incidents, which police aren't really trained to deal with in the same way as, let's say, a social worker clinician type system, right? So I think when we talk about defunding, we have to talk about how we made the choice 10 years ago to defund our mental health care system in the city of Chicago, how we closed schools and reduced community centers where people had support. Okay, so when we're talking about defunding, let's start with that conversation about the defunding of our mental health care. When we're talking about public safety funding, right, nobody's trying to defund the police here. That's a talking point. That's a cheap talking point. We saw it on, yard signs with no accountability in the November election accusing candidates of the same nonsense. That's not the reality. What we're talking about is funding a public safety system, including the police, that has accountability for officers, that has support for officers, that allows a budget that can empower our system to serve our residents in a better way. That means having a treatment, not trauma portion of our public safety program that allows police officers to respond better to the calls that they're trained for properly, right? So it's a comprehensive overhaul. It's not a list of sharp little talking point jabs. And Brandon Johnson understands that. And I think when we hear from him in the debate, what we heard this week, when his volunteers, which are very, very many, are on the doors knocking and talking to Chicagoans and spending time answering these questions, I think he's going to be able to make the effective argument that this is a big picture thing. Chicagoans are smart. They understand this, right? The rhetoric coming out of the Dallas campaign is written by the Fraternal Order of Police and probably sanctioned by, as your other panelists mentioned, the Republican Party. And that's not what Chicago is about. So I think when we look at that 33% number for Vallis, I absolutely agree that level around that area is his ceiling. And Brandon does have a real opportunity to build on the coalitions that he's had at the county level as an organizer. And anybody that has heard him speak at any event or has talked to him about the Cook County budget knows that he's a serious candidate, that he really understands the impact of these decisions of government on the people, that he cares to get things done, and he's willing to listen to feedback, right? He knows that there's certain things he might need to hear from experts on, and he takes that in as a true organizer and leader. He's a real leader, and I think that is starting to really come through to people. And I absolutely agree with you that the mainstream local media is not necessarily focusing on some of these positives for Brandon and the impact of his grassroots campaign.
Well, doesn't work for corporations, so he's not the corporate choice, and our media are the corporate media. That's what they do. I want to get about a minute and a half for you, Reverend Jeanette Wilson. We'll get more on the other side, and of course Dwight McKee is now with us. Reverend Wilson, your thoughts about what you see. This ABC poll shows the race tightening. 44.9% of the respondents said they will vote for Vallis, but 39.1% say they will vote for Johnson. And these polls continue to see this race tighten.
Well, I think that more and more people are beginning to see that they have to do something. Everybody talks about the Harold Washington race. What they forget is people decided that they were going to elect Harold Washington. And so you saw preachers turning out. You saw teachers turning out. You saw students turning out. You saw just across the city there was this energy. People decided we're going to take our city and we're going to give it to someone that we trust, we believe, that will take us to the next level. And I'm beginning to see that kind of energy around Brandon Johnson. He's not Superman. He can't be everywhere all at the same time. But we can be everywhere because we are everywhere. And we have to decide. Women have to decide. I know there's a women's press conference tomorrow, Tuesday, at 9 a.m. in support of Brandon Johnson. So when you begin to see lawyers for Brandon, teachers for Brandon, architects for Brandon, real estate brokers for Brandon, contractors for Brandon, when you begin to see, and I think this week is going to be a real lightening as we prepare to approach the early voting. You're going to see souls to the polls on March 20th. Churches across the city are taking people to vote, not telling them that they have to vote for Brandon. But when you see that level of energy on the street, people know what to do once they get there. You got to get them there. And so our goal is turning out students, turning out homeowners, everybody on every block saying, where are you going? I'm going to vote. I'm going to vote. March 20th is the kickoff. This weather is crazy, so you need to vote early so you don't have any issues on Election Day, April 4th. So on April 5th, we're going to celebrate. Brandon will be the next mayor of the city of Chicago.
And then we've got to get to work so we can really help to advocate for ourselves and push him to do what it is that we send him there to do. Remember, voting is the end of the beginning, not the beginning of the end. Well, I mean, and the thing is, it's you still love him, you still love whoever gets in there, okay? But the fact is, the way the system works, it works when you work it. Because the people who did not support him still need him because he will be the mayor. So just understand that's how the system works.
People are going to be lobbying every time that city council meets, every day he goes to office. We have to push our agenda. So I agree with you. We're going to work hard to get him in, going to work hard to keep him in, and work hard to make sure that he does what we need him to do for us.
That's all we do.
Have not done in prior elections.
Well, but that's because we didn't understand the system. And we keep making it a date. Well, that's right. But we act like it's a date and not a destination. Dwight McKee, we're going to get your analysis on the other side. But we're talking with this wonderful panel. I'm so proud of Xavier Nogueras. I just have to say that because knew when he was but a boy. Oh my gosh, working on the Jackson campaign. I mean, look, he was 17. He was a baby traveling, like Ray Lewis Thornton 4 years before him. I mean, goodness gracious, but he was younger and couldn't vote yet, but said, look, we gotta get this man. We can make him president. And it was just, and now he's the head of the Boca Media Group, and he just has given us such brilliant analysis. Reverend Stephen Thurston from the New Covenant Baptist Church giving us a lot of insight on this murder clearance rate. I want you to give us that again when we get on the other side, Reverend Thurston, because that's a talking point for Commissioner Johnson. That is, you encapsulated it to me brilliantly. You know, we're over-policed, underprotected, and underserved. We got to talk about that, Aaron Connolly. We got to talk about that, Dwight McKee and Reverend Jeanette Wilson. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Pastor Thurston, that's it. Dwight, what do you think?
We still don't have Dwight.
Oh, I thought we had him. Okay.
No, I called him again. He's still going. It rings once, then goes straight to voicemail.
Did a blue flu on Mayor Lightfoot. They did not try to solve these crimes, and that was deliberate. When she brought in the guy from Texas, that was a signal for them to say, well, you don't think much of us, we don't think much of you, and they have not been working as hard as they should have to solve any of these crimes.
Well, they did that to Bill de Blasio in New York. I mean,
they do it across the country. That's the Fraternal Order of Police controls the rank and file.
Thuggery.
And that's the issue with policing.
And remember, these police are basically, you have the Secret Service on the federal level protecting the president and federal officials. Well, the police do the same for the mayor and their families. And so they can make you feel that your families are very vulnerable. You don't know if they're going to get set up. You don't know if they're going to go unprotected. You don't know. And yeah, I'm putting it right out there because all of these arrests and whatnot are political. I've told you they're political in nature. There's some people, some of the biggest names are the biggest, they have problems, let me put it that way. Okay? But they never make the papers. They do not, because they are protected.
Harold Washington had the Afro-American Police League, and that's who kept the city under him. You had Howard Saffold, and I can't remember Pat's last name. They were.
Hold on. You keep talking. They were trying to call you. You're answering?
So, I think we have to...
Okay, I'll have them call you now.
We have to have an alternative to FOP, and I think that's the National Association of Black Law Enforcement.
Excuse me, one moment. You can call Dwight McKee.
Okay, I'll do it now.
Okay, thanks so much. Okay, keep talking. I'm sorry.
No, I'm saying the police, the FOP has a stranglehold on policing in this city and around the nation. And, years ago, I was saying we had the Afro-American Patrolmen's League, Howard Saffold, and we had a strong inside African-American police officers who protected Harold Washington and other black elected officials and the black community. You could call them and say certain things happened, and they were strong enough and widespread enough to help us.
Sending Dwight McKee through
in the city. I don't know where that group is. I know we have Noble now, and we need to hear from them what's happening with policing in every major city around the country where there's a concentration of African Americans. In the African American areas, policing is not the same as it is in other areas of the city.
Absolutely not. Oh. But you are looking at these numbers, Pastor Thurston.
Yes, ma'am.
And, what is the deal with the murder clearance rate? What is that?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
What is the deal with the murder clearance rate? What is that?
Yeah, Reverend Wilson was saying they don't care about us, and they are making it very evident the energy, the effort that's going into trying to solve crimes, build relations in our community isn't there. And there's a financial component to this. The data shows that for every homicide, it costs the city $1.6 million. When it comes down to police salaries, ambulance calls, jail time, all of that. $1.6 million for non-homicidal shootings. It's $1.1 million.
Renee, I wish we still did have Pat Hill. God rest her soul.
Pat Hill, that's who I was trying to get her last name.
Pat Hill. Pat Hill.
She fought till the end.
Mm-hmm. Oh, she did fight.
And Howard Sappho and the other guy, he was a policeman's policeman. So, the mayor was able to move aggressively in some areas because he had, at least Harold Washington had a very strong group around him.
Well, but that was at a time, if I may interrupt, when there was still a lot of suspicion and a lot of worry about assassinations of black leadership. So Noble, because they did so much to protect my father, whether he was running for president or not. I mean, I grew up with these police officers, and what they would do is whenever we land in a city, the police officers in their off time would come and they would take us around. Not to mention the fact, I remember the black officers from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, the TBI. We were on the Southern Crusade leading into the Reverend's first presidential run when he was running for, the Southern Crusade, when we were registering these millions of voters in the South the summer of '83. And we crossed into Mississippi from Tennessee. And, Velma Wilson and I looked at each other like, aren't they supposed to leave us? And the lead agent in the car turned around and he said, sweetheart, because I was a kid, and he wanted to know, he said, look, I know you just noticed that we're in Mississippi now. We're going to be with you all throughout the leg of this trip. We're taking our vacation time to be with Reverend for these couple of weeks that you're out here, because we know that there are a lot of crazy folks out here, and we're just going to do everything we can to protect him. So don't you worry about your daddy. Oh, girl, I almost cried in the back of that car. Because when we got out the car, there were even more agents and police officers. I mean, we couldn't move. And so at that time, but they did this to Bill de Blasio and his wife. I mean, this is, if you don't dance to the jig of the FOP, they will make you feel very unsafe, and they need to be called out on that thuggery. And that's what it is. They're betraying the badge. That's what they're doing. Dwight, I'm going to come to you, and then we're going to continue to go on. But I want you to go, and I think you're on to something, Stephen. Over police, underprotected, and underserved. With this clearance rate, that's something you need to give to Commissioner Johnson, and you're going to do it. Because he needs a talking point. Stand by.
Change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. It is Monday, March 13th, 2023. We are heading into this mayoral election. It's just about 3 weeks away, and are you voting? Have you voted? This race is closing, everybody. According to the latest ABC 7 poll, it's Vallis 44%, but it's Brandon Johnson 39%. He'll be with us at the bottom of the hour, talking about that and really explaining defund the police and taxes and all of that, all of the questions that people have about him. And according to Xavier Nogueras from the Boca Media Group, the misrepresentations that the corporate media have made of him. He's had a steeper climb, and yet he is gaining. So let's call me at 773-763-9278. Got to tell you, we're going to have to free up those two lines at the bottom, so we're going to have to move people up. Devin, because we have got the commissioner is actually going to call in. So we're going to do that. I don't know who you're going to have to move, but we're going to have to do that. So call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Let's get to some of these headlines. 34 degrees. Snow showers today here in Chicago. It just continues to snow. 28 degrees. Mostly sunny in Minneapolis, St. Paul. In the NBA, well, the The Bulls have had the night off, and they'll have the night off tonight. And the Timberwolves, though, will be playing the Hawks. In the NHL, the Coyotes 5, the Wild 4, the Chicago's team had the time off. The 95th Academy Awards were presented on Sunday in Los Angeles. Historic wins for the movie Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, and especially historic night for our brothers and sisters in the Asian community. God bless them. Michelle Yeoh, one of the finest actresses out there, everybody, who had her Oscar presented to her. She won first actress of Asian descent to win this award. Bless her heart. She won for Best Actress in a Leading Role, making her the first woman of Asian descent to win an Oscar in that particular category. And of course, she was presented the award by none other than Halle Berry, first black woman to win the Leading Role Best Actress Oscar in that category. And it was quite the night for that entire film. And indeed, you remember the little boy who used to act with Harrison Ford? He won an Oscar. I'm so proud of him. I don't know what to do. Just love it, love it, love it, everybody. Brendan Fraser won his Oscar. Ruth won her Oscar for Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, and CNN's Navalny as the best documentary. Congratulations to everyone, those who I mentioned and those who I have not mentioned. President Joe Biden plans to address Americans this morning about his administration's emergency response to the failure of two banks, huge banks, over the past 5 days, past few days indeed. This comes after tech lender Silicon Valley Bank collapsed on Friday. They had $170+ billion in deposits. 151 billion of them were not insured, everybody. But the Biden administration on Sunday guaranteed that those impacted by the collapse of this bank will get their money back starting today. They will make it right. In a related action, the government shut down Signature Bank, which was teetering on the brink of collapse in recent days. Got to watch these banks collapsing. I think there's something to it, everybody. Residents in storm-battered California are bracing for another atmospheric event here on today. And many areas are still flooded, and they're expecting more flooding today. Wow, it's the 11th such river event to hit the U.S. West this winter season, everybody. Let us be careful out there and pray for everybody in the western United States, because that storm event is moving all across the country. Indeed, many people who've been planting in the South are going to have to find a way to protect those plants, because they are about to be hit with freezing weather, which will kill a lot of crops. I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from the Santita Jackson Show. We've got Reverend Jeanette Wilson from Rainbow Push, Aaron Connolly. Well, we have Attorney Aaron Connolly. We have to share you with us, covenant strategies, but your Rainbow Push too. And of course, we have got Reverend Stephen Thurston, New Covenant Baptist Church, brilliant analyst, and of course, Xavier Nagaris from the Boca Media Group, giving us brilliant political insights and analysis. And we've been joined by Dwight McKee. But before I ask you, Dwight McKee, for your thoughts on this campaign, Stephen, not only did Mr. Nagaris give us brilliant insights, but Stephen, I think, Pastor Stephen Thurston, I think you gave Mr. Nagaris, I think that he gave Brandon Johnson, Commissioner Johnson, a wonderful talking point when people come at him about defund the police, Xavier. What do you think?
That was excellent. Yes. It's funny because I was, as your awesome panelists were talking, I'm like, I really hope that Brandon is going to incorporate some of these things into the narrative. There were two things that I heard that really jumped out. The whole issue of Val's being a one-trick pony. I think that was such an amazing talking point. Please share it with Johnson, because that is the truth. It's funny. Vallis goes into the neighborhoods where he's good at, and he talks about he's going to be so good on crime. But the truth is, he's not like the strongest predictor of folks getting back into crime is poverty, and it happens because they don't have housing security. They don't have employment opportunities. They don't have, support from the community. And that is what Johnson is talking about. And if I'm in some of these Southwest wards, some of these white conservative Democratic wards, I would actually embrace Johnson, because I would know that he actually has a solution to crime, where Paul is just kind of giving them what they want to hear, put more police on the street, right? And that's going to be your solution. And it isn't. And somebody else said something. Somebody kept on saying, I forgot her name, and my apologies on the panel, said, Chicagoans are smarter, right? Mm-hmm. And this is really where Johnson is going to excel, because he's treating Chicagoans like they're smarter. Vallis isn't. Vallis is assuming that Chicagoans aren't smarter, and he's going to, again, be this one-trick pony. And there's an actual plan when you talk about crime solutions. When you talk about, we're not even talking about, the lack of common sense gun laws. And if you look at Vallis's main supporters and the people who are funding him, they don't want these gun laws. They don't want these common sense gun laws. And yet, Paul's supposed to be the person who's going to be tough on crime. And it's false, and that is the false narrative that the media is portraying. But the good news is that Johnson really is breaking through.
Reverend Thurston, before I go to you, Dwight McKee.
Yeah, Brandon has to exploit that point and then make some strategic connections with younger people, because I think he can gain their voice and their vote much quicker than Vallis can. As a young person on a Sunday morning, though I'm a pastor, I recognize that the majority of the young people that would be at my church are at rooftop restaurants having brunch. Incorporating things like that into his schedule, where he's popping up in those places, galvanizing that young vote, getting that young, upwardly mobile African-American who's got a vast network of friends, connecting with those crews to bring them alongside and hook them in, get them solid as supporters, would be another point that he should exploit.
But you also came up with some real data. I mean, that's important, because you got to go where the people are. There's no question about that. Because also our habits on Sunday have changed so much, in particularly in the post-COVID world. You talked about us being over-policed and what?
Yes, we're over-policed and underserved in our community. $1.7 billion budget. If you ever try to dig into that budget to see where the money goes, you're not going to find it. It's a black hole. You got to pay attention to this rhetoric about more police and more money for police, but the police aren't performing. It's called return on investment. You would not take your personal money and put it into an instrument, and it does not return any value to you. So why do we keep trying to put money into something that the data is showing us isn't working? There needs to be an overhaul in how we approach policing and what we're doing, as young men just said, to deal with the root cause issues. And Brandon is at least producing plans that sound like they got sense connected to them, that can make sense in the lives of people in our community.
Dwight McKee, your thoughts?
Well, I think that Brandon has one mobile crusade of inclusion, where people see where they fit in his plans. For example, when he talks about more counseling, the counsel is not just for the citizens. The counsel is also for the police themselves. The police has a higher suicidal rate than the gangbangers. The gangbangers shoot each other. The policemen shoot themselves. And so counseling will be effective not just for the citizens who don't need the police to arrest them when they need psychological help. The counseling is also for the police who are more stressed, it seems, than any other profession, who many of them resolve their stress by suicide. When he talks about education, he needs to show the Hispanic community how they are at much risk in terms of Vallis's plan for education, for selective education, as we are in the black community. And a net effect impact it had on the black community and our children is equally going to be a threat to the Hispanic and some parts of the poor white community. That same strategy will have the net effect of decapitating education for them as it did for us. He needs to be able to explain that. He needs to, when he talks about safety and crime, he needs to be able to interpret where everybody fits in that the issue for crime is not just arresting people, black people, and the police being able to arrest people in the inner city for their crime issues. Is that he has to talk about building safety in as a total citizen involvement, and that he's going to open up the process to all of the citizens, that he will involve Asians in the police department and the Greek community in the police department and the Hispanic community in the police department, and there will be no single ethnic group who would dominate fire departments and city jobs and police departments, that he's going to open up a process. He really needs to run a crusade of inclusion.
Do you think that will, Xavier, before I pivot to Attorneys Connolly and Wilson, how do you think that will impact this? People say that the Black-Brown Coalition does not exist. I don't believe that. They say it's fragile. Well, all coalitions are, but I just think that it can be strengthened over time. What do you think about that?
Things go in cycle, right, in life. I think what really a lot of the Black-Brown Coalition, a lot of the future of that is happening now with our younger leaders, right? We have younger elected officials, right? And we have more progressive elected officials, and you saw that on the north side. Like, literally the wards that Brandon won, half of them were Latino. Like, people keep on saying, well, Vallis is going to do better in the Latino community. And again, it's this, we perpetuate this narrative that isn't true because we want it to become true, and we have to fight back on it. Look, the latest poll from Victory Research that showed the mayoral election tightening up showed that there is a virtual tie in the Hispanic community. Part of that is that the Hispanic community, again, is smarter. Like we said, Chicagoans are smarter. And like the Reverend talked about, education is so important to the Latino community, my community. I'm Latino. That, again, this is not about being a one-trick pony. The Latino community cares about all sorts of things. And yes, crime is up there, and it's a top issue. But folks understand that there are other things that perpetuate a community not growing. But getting back to the Black-Brown Coalition, I think folks are being reintroduced to it because, yes, unfortunately, that coalition did, in some part, break apart. But it broke apart because it was really not something that corporate America, that folks in power wanted to see happen. And I think the hope for the Black-Brown Coalition is what's happening right now with our younger leaders getting together. And, now that coalition is even growing now. Like you have, East Indian and Muslim and other folks. Chicago really is a diverse city. And as that diversity grows, that has a lot to do with why there's a lot of hope for Brandon to become mayor.
Call us at 773-763-9278. We're going to have Commissioner Brandon Johnson on with us at the bottom of the hour. Reverend Jeanette Wilson, your thoughts?
Well, I think that one of the things that we must do, for example, teachers union has endorsed Brandon. That means every teacher should make sure that every high school senior who is eligible to vote is registered and votes. They don't have to tell them who to vote for. They just need to get them to the polls to vote. They should have them early vote. There should be a day in the city where everyone early votes in these schools. That will, and same thing with the city colleges. They should have the opportunity to early vote, push it throughout the system. Young people will vote the right way if they are encouraged to vote and they understand college tuition rates are set, state college tuition rates are set by elected officials. If they understand everything that they're doing, the lack of technology in their buildings, the absence of teaching robotics and STEM classes, that's a funding issue. That's a commitment that the school system has to make, that every child has access to a high-quality public education. And so we need to begin to educate people on why voting now is so significant. And here you have for the first time a teacher running for mayor. This is an unprecedented opportunity for students, educators to turn out in great numbers. I do believe that there will be a coalition of people voting. I don't think the black-brown coalition has dissolved into the abyss. I do believe that there will be some significant partnerships. I look at Slim Coleman and Emma Lozano's daughter. She's organized young people. They meet every Sunday. There's a powerful move across the city of young leaders. And as young America wakes up and old America votes their strength, we will see a transformation in this election like we've not seen before. Mm-hmm. But it takes everyone. It takes mothers. It takes fathers. It takes women, people that are sitting in county jail waiting trial. They have to go and vote. Don't let this opportunity pass you. And we have to begin to just do civic education everywhere, all the time. Mm. I wish they could vote in these fast food restaurants where people get most of their meals. We got to make voting as easy as possible, as accessible as possible.
If they wanted to, if they wanted to make it easier, they would. Dwight?
In addition to that, though, you don't have to be dependent on just the Hispanic black coalition. There are 77 ethnic groups in this town, and all of them have a self-interest. And he needs to reach out to those groups and find out what their self-interest is. That's why I say you have to run a campaign of inclusion, because many of them have been left out of the process over the years, as we have been. This has been a one-ethnic town for the last 100 years, where one ethnic group has dominated everything in social service. It's totally dominated the police department. If you saw the parade last week and the funeral last week, is all the police who showed up, most of the police that showed up for that funeral or who showed up for that parade lived right up the street in that one neighborhood. When there's a whole city full of ethnic groups that have been left out of the political process that you can reach out to and bring them in. I think when you talk about a Hispanic black coalition, I think that's essential, but it's limiting. I think he has capacity to reach out to the whole city, and all of them have an interest to be involved in both the commerce and the service of the city itself, the total city.
Aaron, I've got 1 minute. It belongs to you.
Well, I'm out on the doors with the Lori Torres-Witt campaign in the 36th ward, which is going into a runoff, who is endorsed and supports Brandon Johnson. And so we're talking to voters about Brandon, and the more we talk, the more excited they are. And I think, when we look at the numbers, when we look at the state of the race, he has the momentum, and that's what this political business is all about. Who has the momentum going into the big day? And as we know, election day isn't just a day anymore. We're the whole early voting period where the news cycle impacts that, and so he can start to take advantage of that turnout momentum immediately, almost, right? So we look at folks being able to vote early, and I think Brandon has the turnout game and the grassroots support. These are amazing teachers, educators, parents. It's a broad coalition, and I think he's already reached out to every cross-section of that city, and I see it represented in his volunteers and his team, and it's really great to see.
I want you all to stay here because I want you to express your support to Brandon Johnson. These campaigns are very difficult, as you know, Xavier, as you know, Reverend Wilson, as we all know. I mean, you know that. And it means so much for people to hear how you feel. And of course, Renee's going to be at the front of the line because Brandon has been her guy from day one. But we're going to be speaking with Commissioner Brandon Johnson about about this campaign. And, I want you all to give him, within a minute, you'll have a one-on-one with him. Give him some advice. The crusade, being over-policed and underprotected, and the murder clearance rate. I want you all to give it to him. Give it to him, because I know he's going to hear you, and I know he's going to use it. And we're just going to make this happen, everybody. On the Santita Jackson Show, continue to call me at 773-763-9278. Even if you're not getting through, I promise you we're going to get to you. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Do you need to move anyone up, Devin?
I believe Commissioner Johnson usually calls on the warm line, which is open. So.
Okay. Well, I sent both numbers to him, because when you're out and about and he's got a million things on his mind. I just wanted to make sure.
For sure.
But we have that open. Okay. Well, we're on Facebook Live now. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to add? Hello? Anybody there?
Yeah, as Xavier, I think turnout. Turnout is key, Xavier. Turnout. It's there. It's there, but the turnout has to happen. I'm looking at these numbers now. Some of these wards that Vallis won, it's scary. 60% turnout, 55% turnout. I look at some of the, obviously there's a lot of low turnout in the Hispanic wards, but, there's a really low turnout in the Black West Side ward. Really low turnout. It's not a coincidence, right, that you have wards that are the most impoverished with the lowest turnout, and we got to turn that around.
How do you do that, Xavier?
Just speaking to folks, you heard it today. When folks feel like, and this is where I think Brandon didn't have that spotlight, right? Like when in the primary, Brandon now is the candidate, right? Like that's speaking to these folks, and I think folks will feel the self-interest. If there's not a self-interest, folks ain't going to just vote to vote, right? I think they're going to feel the self-interest, and I think it's happening, and that's what it's about.
Does anyone have a response to that? Dwight,
I think he has to really engage in a massive social media campaign. Many of the people that have not turned out are not watching the commercials on television. I think you have to go to Instagram, Facebook, and push messages out. You reach more people, and you have to get these streaming services to put your commercials on as much as you can. Radio is a powerful tool because people are listening when they're in gyms, when they're in the car, riding on the bus. So we have to hit them where they are. That's why your program is so important. If I were his campaign manager, I would be buying ad space on all of this radio all day long, every day, because that's where people are. That's what they're listening to help them understand the issues. You don't have to talk long. You got to talk to people that work 2 and 3 jobs and still trying to make ends meet. Why should I vote? If I am a high school senior, junior, I'll be 18. Why should I vote? Talk to these mothers who are wondering how they're going to make
60
it.
seconds. 60 seconds, everybody.
Okay. Let me know when he gets here, okay?
Okay.
Thanks so much.
What I would use if I were doing those commercials.
Well, hold that thought. Hold that thought, Dwight. I want you to say it on the air. We're coming up. Okay. And panel, thank you for being with us today. And remember, give him that snapshot within 1 minute. Within a minute. Now, I know Pastor Thurston is the master of the soundbite. You know these preachers. You know what you all do. You all. Wait a minute, I don't think you heard
3
me.
points and a close. You got 3 points and a close. You can't tell me the whole story.
15 minutes or less. 15 minutes or less.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Waiting for Commissioner Brandon Johnson to call in. In the meantime, we want to hear from you. 773-763-9278 here on WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. On March 31st, early in the day, in the late part of the morning, early part of the afternoon, WCPT will have a mayoral debate, and that night, Rainbow Push will do the same. We've gotten a confirmation from Commissioner Brandon Johnson. We are awaiting a confirmation from Mr. Paul Vallis. We want to hear from you, Paul Vallis. We want you to be at the Rainbow Push debate. So, got this tremendous panel. Xavier Nogueras from the Boca Media Group, Attorney Erin Connolly, Covenant Strategy. She does so much brilliant work. Dwight McKee from Maffa and Sankofa on the west side at the New Mount Pilgrim Baptist Church, and of course Pastor Stephen Thurston from the New Covenant Baptist Church, and Reverend Jeanette Wilson, Maple Park United Methodist Church and Rainbow Push. Dwight McKee, you were making a point, because you've been making the point that this should not be a campaign, it should be a crusade. What were you saying during the break?
I was saying that I agree that he needs a strategy for young people. But what I do is I would bring in the young people that they already recognize and identified. I would have them doing the commercials. I would have, or try to have a chance running commercials on BET specifically for the young people, talking about how he endorses, not unlike Ballard's did with Jesse White, where Jesse is making an endorsement for the people that identify with him. So I think it's when I talk about the campaign of inclusion, I'm talking about how people can see where they fit and identify with his causes and how they benefit them directly. Your daddy say self-interest is a sustaining force in an organization.
Let me go to you, Renee. Renee, what's on your mind today?
Hey, good morning, and thanks for taking my call.
Of course.
You know, back during the 2007 election cycle, I made a T-shirt, and it said, you can take the man out of Bridgeport, but you can't take the Bridgeport out of the man. However, you can remove him and his John Birch tactics from City Hall. Well, today I want to say you can also prevent one of the men who carried out some of his most racist policies from getting into City Hall, a man who helped dismantle public schools in black and Hispanic areas, because when I was looking at a list, it showed areas that were gentrifying that had a Hispanic and black and even poor white population in those schools. He closed those too. I posted that on my Facebook page. But on a positive note, we can put somebody who has shown integrity, a man of intelligence, a man who has a plan, and a man who will keep it 100 into that office of City Hall. We just have to get informed, and we have to get out there and vote for the best choice, which just happens to be Brandon Johnson.
Renee has spoken, everybody. Let me go to Hunter. Hunter, what's on your mind?
Yes, good morning, Santita, and to all the guests. Appreciate all their comments. They're all right on target. I just have a couple of things I want to say, and hopefully you can ask Commissioner Johnson to respond to. Number one, anticipating Reverend Willie Wilson's remarks, Laquan McDonald was hunted down like a rabbit. The National Police Funding Database project of the Thurgood Marshall Institute identified 9 publicly reported settlements in Chicago that resulted in policy changes, but a total of $314,585,000 in monetary compensation to victims. This is a huge issue. We don't know how much is in the city budget for all these settlements. How do they anticipate the costs? So Chuck Gowdy from Channel 7 reported records show Chicago is spending as much money on outside law firms to defend police misconduct cases as it is spending on their own law department. $40 million a year going to outside law firms to handle police misconduct cases, and we don't know who the outside law firm is. Was there a no-bid contract? So I would hope that Commissioner Johnson, should he become mayor, tries to mitigate these issues. I mean, Finance Commissioner, Committee Chairman Scott Wakasak says the city needs to break this expensive pattern and concentrating on implementing police reforms mandated by the consent decree. That was September 2020. What has happened? Just a couple of small things. CTAL safety. That's a huge issue. I ride the CTA ever since my BMW was totaled by a car accident since September 2021. You know, I think it would be good. People would appreciate if they put deodorizers in the L station elevators and sanitize the escalators. You know, riding the L, particularly the red line, riders are hyper vigilant. I've had to run off the train due to youth fighting. The K-9 units at the turnstile do nothing. So I would hope that Commissioner Johnson would support police on the L trains, especially on the red line, to stop young men from going car to car selling cigarettes, cannabis blunts, 1-ounce bottles of alcohol, and worse, smoking on the trains. You know, there was a man with an oxygen tank who was on the train, and a guy comes on smoking, and he asked him...
Commissioner Johnson is on hold.
And so he put the cigarette out.
Hunter?
So I would hope...
Hunter, Commissioner Johnson is listening right now. So, I mean, you've given him a whole laundry list of things to deal with. So let me bring up, and I love you, Hunter, because really this is the people's station. This is what we're dealing with, and he's the people's candidate as far as I'm concerned. And so let me bring Commissioner Brandon Johnson on, who has been a host on this show before many times. Commissioner Johnson, welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, Santita. Thank you, and of course to the worldwide listeners of the great Santita Jackson Show.
Well, you know, I have several people who are listening in. I have Xavier Nogueras from the Boca Media Group. I have Attorney Aaron Connolly listening, of course, Reverend Jeanette Wilson, Dwight McKee, and Reverend Stephen Thurston listening in from the New Covenant Baptist Church. Of course, his father used to be the president of the Progressive Baptist Convention, about 2.3 million black parishioners. And they, you know, are very supportive of you, and we've been looking at ways that as we're watching you close the gap between you and Paul Vallis, just looking at ways that we can continue to close this gap. So talk to us. Let me just get right to it. What about defund the police? And in fact, Reverend Thurston said something that I thought was just so brilliant. Reverend Thurston, could you start off, and then I'm going to pivot to Commissioner Johnson.
For sure. Hey, Commissioner, excited for your future, man, and you know we've got your back, fully supporting you. Listen, your opponent, in my opinion, is a one-trick pony. Keeps talking about this old piece about violence and stopping violence, tough on crime. But then when we look at the Chicago Police Department with its $1.7 billion budget, and then we look at clearance rates, Chicago lowest in the country at 45%. Black communities, 21% clearance rate. White communities, 45% clearance rate. We see a big discrepancy there. And so when we look at our communities, we're over-police, but underprotected. And I think that's a point that can be exploited with this one-trick pony when you break down these facts to help them understand that there's no return on investment thus far. And what he's talking about doing is not going to help us at all.
Particularly as you've been accused of defunding the police. Please speak to that.
Yeah, I'm not going to defund the police, And look, I've been accused of a lot of different things, and, my record is actually quite clear. And I'm the only person in this race who's actually declared like a real comprehensive budget plan as well as a public safety plan. And what I've said repeatedly, we need to hire and train, promote 200 more detectives. To Pastor Thurston's point, we're not solving crime. How do you engender confidence in the police department when crime is occurring and it's not being solved, right? And so we can do that immediately. More detectives so that we're actually in a position to solve the violent crime. I'll be working with the Attorney General. I've spoken to this repeatedly as well. The consent decree is going to cost money, conservatively $50 million, to make sure we are implementing the consent decree with all due expediency. Third thing, you have to make sure that we're actually enforcing the laws that are on the books. We have red flag laws, right? People who have guns that should not have guns, we want to make sure that we get those guns off the street. Now, that's the difference between me and my opponent. He's supported by Kenny Griffin, Citadel, and their sole purpose is to produce more guns, right, and put more guns on the streets. I'm trying to get guns off the street and, of course, make sure that we're funding the programs that work. The other program that I've put forth in the immediate that we can do, the immediacy we can do this, is hire more young people, 14 to 24 years old, up to 26 years old. There's a direct correlation between youth employment and violence reduction. We can do that day one in my administration. Here's something else that's important. We need to make sure that we are not only opening our mental health centers, we need to make sure that we have EMTs, first responders, and our social workers and counselors to respond to what ultimately are almost 40% of the 911 calls. In the Los Angeles Times, Santita, you saw this. The Los Angeles Police Department agrees with me. The hardest part about being a police officer is not just doing their job, but having to do someone else's job. We shift the mindset within our entire culture to make sure that we have first responders to deal with the mental health crises. That frees up law enforcement to actually deal with the violent crime. Here's the other part that I don't want it to get lost on, because this is the point that Pastor Thurston has made, and I've made it repeatedly. Over 40% of the violence that takes place in the city of Chicago, it takes place in 6% of the city. In other words, it's taking places in parts of the city that are overwhelmingly communities that are black and poor. That's the very neighborhood that I'm raising my family in. Right? So this notion that somehow this issue is not being taken seriously by me, it's the same type of mindset or fear tactics that are used when it comes to my ability to actually pass and manage a multi-billion-dollar budget. He has offered no plan. And here's one other point. It takes up to 18 months. It takes up to 18 months in order for a police officer to get to the streets of Chicago. Who on this call has 2 years to wait before we start to implement anybody's plan? Who has 2 years? I don't have 2 years to wait when you're raising a family in Austin. I don't. I'll be the first mayor elected in the city of Chicago who lives in one of the most violent neighborhoods in the city of Chicago, darn near the country. There's an article in the Sun-Times that was just produced and released. The vast majority of homicides have taken place in Austin, where I live. There are more homicides that have taken place in the last 4 years just in my neighborhood alone than most of the very communities combined that Paul Vallis is trying to trick and produce fear. No one has more incentive for this city to be safe than a black man with black children raising them on the west side of Chicago. And I'll say that over and over again. Yes, I'm a little bit provoked this morning. Absolutely. Because we have to do what works. This is not about just simply being tough on crime. It's about being smart. And that's what my plan does. It's an investment plan.
What, you have, and just being a married father of three, and you're raising your children in the community. What can the mayor do to make you feel safer? I mean, please, in my parents' neighborhood, one of my parents' neighbors was carjacked in the driveway, right? I mean, in South Shore. There's something that's going on out here. I mean, people are really, really struggling, and I'm not making excuses for people, but if you go to Brazil, you'll have to stay in your hotel, Commissioner Johnson, because people are hurting. There is no middle class in Brazil. And they will tell you, you better keep your prosperous looking self in the hotel until you get picked up. Otherwise, you're going to get hurt out here. So talk to me. I mean, what can you do as mayor? What do you want to do about that?
Yeah, and thank you for putting context to that. Look, this is a serious problem. It's a problem that I'm going to inherit. And as I said, there's no one that has more an incentive for this to work than me in this race. Between the choices, and when you talk about actionable things that the mayor's office can do, you can put together a plan. There hasn't been a plan. Right now, you just have, a bunch of fear mongering right now, and quite frankly, and I know, people. Well, I'm just going to say, this is absolutely politics. These are the same tactics that the right wing, these extremists that are supporting my opponent, have attempted to do in our communities for a very long time. And so this is what I'm saying. The mayor's office has the ability to move an agenda to promote and train 200 more detectives right now. We can do that. In terms of recruiting more police officers, how do you engender confidence, particularly within black and brown communities, to want to serve the city of Chicago as law enforcement? And there are so many barriers that keep individuals who live in the very communities that are most violent from serving. FICA scores, debt, misdemeanors. They don't pass the psychological exam, and no one knows why they don't. There are less officers per capita in Los Angeles and New York, and they do not have the type of violence that we have in the city of Chicago. One, because there's no plan. Two, because we're asking police officers to do their job in someone else's. I'm not going to require that of law enforcement. And three, we're not addressing the root causes of violence in the city. That's why my comprehensive budget plan gets at the immediacy of violence in the city of Chicago and long-term solutions. All of us are experiencing mental health crises right now. There was a scene a few months ago. There was a murder scene in the West Loop. And the officers that were on the scene, the vast majority of them could have been my former students, Santita. And the horror on their faces, because of the violence that they're exposed to every single day. And these are also young officers because the force is getting younger and younger. These are the same young people who are serving on the front line as officers who've grown up in trauma. And their day-to-day consists of trauma. And we're sending them to doors to be social workers and marriage counselors. That's not supporting police officers. It's not. I'm going to support police officers by supporting the community, by investing in people. And so, yes, train and promote more detectives. I can do that right away. My opponent is not offering that. We implement the consent decree. He's not offering that because he is backed by the very people who do not want to see accountability. The leadership of the Fraternal Order of Police said that the January 6th insurrection, they support it. Again, someone like Ken Griffin, who spent millions of dollars to shut down schools, to shut down mental health centers, to disinvest in communities. Right? There's a clear distinction here, a very clear distinction. And I'm proud to be in this moment because this moment has been brought to us by a movement of people who, black, brown, white, Asian, it's a multicultural, multi-generational movement where I'm in every space in this city, and they're all saying the same thing. They want investment, small businesses and economic development through investment, education and real opportunity, including having the trades in the schools. That's investment. They want reliable, safe transportation. That's investment. I'm the only one calling for that. They want housing and affordable housing. That's investment. My entire plan and my entire campaign, and quite frankly, my entire life has been built around investing in people. And that's what I'm going to do as mayor. I've done it as a Cook County commissioner. Hundreds of millions of dollars invested in the largest universal basic guaranteed income. Where overwhelmingly black and brown women receive a check every single day who go to work and the ends don't meet. We are going to retire up to $1 billion of medical debt. We've released millions of dollars, over $100 million in violence prevention. The largest amount of investment in the history of Cook County government. That is the result of the budget for black lives that I've had. And black, brown, white, Asians, young, old, workforce development, economic development. We've done all that as a Cook County commissioner. I'm prepared to do this as the mayor of the city of Chicago because it is a matter of life and death. It's a matter of life and death. And I'm not going to let people sow fear into our people. That type of politics who have left communities behind, that's the old style. We're prepared for a better, stronger, safer Chicago by investing in people, whether it's law enforcement, nurses, social workers, teachers, small businesses, larger businesses, education. We literally have a plan for investment in every aspect and dynamic of this city. I am prepared to lead day one. Everywhere Paul has gone, he has failed. Everywhere he has gone. The reason why we have the structural deficit right now is because he went after the retirement security of women. A $2.5 billion bill that we have to pay. I'm going to eliminate the structural deficit that he caused. I'm going to make up to $1 billion of investment over my first term. And we're going to do it without raising property taxes. I can't wait to do it.
How can you not raise property taxes?
By making sure that those with means pay their fair share. That's a democratic principle. Joe Biden, the president of the United States of America, literally has the same message of my budget plan.
Commissioner, okay.
And so that's why I proposed the real estate transfer tax. The real estate transfer tax. It can raise hundreds of millions of dollars annually to deal with the 65,000 plus that are without homes. How do we call ourselves a world-class city and we have an entire ward, a sizable ward of unhoused? There's a jet fuel tax that's on the table. There's a financial transaction tax that can raise millions of dollars. The financial transaction tax, even Mike Bloomberg agrees with me on that one. And Mike Bloomberg doesn't agree with most of the things that I believe in. Even Mike Bloomberg says the financial transaction tax makes sense. It is literally done all over the world in nations that have multi-billion and trillion-dollar GDP.
Would that mean that you would go to the Merck and to the Board of Trade and for all of their financial transactions, which are untaxed, that they would be taxed? Are you open to that?
A half a penny.
Because this is something that Dwight McKee has been pushing.
Overnight, a half a penny. The rate that we are proposing in Chicago is less than what they're doing in places like Switzerland. And this notion that they'll just get up and pack, somehow it is working and it's manageable in these other nations that do not have the poverty rate that we have, that do not have the dynamic of many people who are unhoused. Their education system is fully funded. We continue to pit working class against the billionaire class when there's enough for everyone. There's no reason to be afraid of me and my leadership. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Election Day is April 4th. This message is not that much different than the message that has been pushed forever in this country. When A. Philip Randolph, one of the great unionists of all time, he put together something that I modeled the budget for Black Lives after. He called it the Freedom Budget for All. And it was the impetus behind the Great Society that literally gave shovels to white men before there were things to dig. Because our country called it a national crisis when unemployment was 30% amongst white men. They never called it entitlement. They never talked about bootstraps. They never talked about welfare. They said it was a matter of national security. And in the city of Chicago, we have things to dig. We have stuff to build. and we have lives to save. And that's why I'm better for Chicago.
Brandon for Chicago. Commissioner Johnson, I need you to stay with me just a couple more minutes because I want each one of these guests who've been holding to give you some words of encouragement. Everybody stay right here on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel and Santita Jackson and Friends. We've been listening to Brandon Johnson, Commissioner Brandon Johnson, without a filter. All right, everybody, get out and vote. Get out and vote. Love you so much. Okay, please unmute everybody. Let me start with you, Aaron. I told you got less than a minute because I'm catching him in the midst of this insanely busy day, which you understand. What do you want Commissioner Johnson to know?
Well, I just want to thank Commissioner Johnson for talking to the audience this morning and really getting to the heart of what his campaign is all about. And, you know, we've seen Brandon Johnson show up in this progressive movement that he referenced for a really long time. And his work in the county has been phenomenal. And I just really commend him for focusing on a progressive policy like cash transfers. It changes people's lives, and it's essentially an amplification of the policies that we've seen be successful at the federal level, like an earned income tax credit that was just repealed, SNAP benefits that were just repealed. So things like this at the county level are really going to save lives, and I just want to thank Commissioner Johnson for his continued work.
Reverend Wilson, less than a minute. Did Reverend Wilson go? Well, okay, well, let me get to Xavier Nogueras.
Well, Santita, I told you this was early for me, and I had to drink my Puerto Rican coffee. But when Johnson started talking, I had to put that coffee to the side because now I got that Johnson caffeine and that energy, and that's what I want to feel. And I got to tell you, we got to keep that energy up. If there any advice, it would be keep that energy up. That detail is so appreciated. Like someone said, Chicago isn't smarter. The only other advice I would give as a Latino, I think Johnson's doing really great on the north side, Puerto Rican, Mexican, a mixed Latino. I want to see Johnson a little more in the Mexican community. On the south side, there's a lot of love for him there, and they want to hear this detail too, maybe a little in Spanish, right? Yeah, keep that energy up. Whew. That was great.
That was your jolt of coffee. All right now. I love it. I love it. Yes. Let me go, Dwight McKee.
Yeah, you know, Sandy, I've been pushing that transaction tax more than anybody. I think she made a commercial about that, explaining that, because that is a real answer to these problems. Secondly, I've been pushing Brandon about this campaign of inclusion, a crusade of inclusion. It's just like 80% of the crime happens in about 5 different areas in the city. 80% of law enforcement lives in about 5% of the city, and the ones with the city jobs within that. So I think you have to open up the process. There's 77 ethnic groups in this city. You very seldom see Asian policemen or Jewish firemen because they've been left out the process just like we've been left out the process. So I would reach out to them and let them know that they have access to city contracts and jobs, just like the one ethnic group that has had dominated that for the last 50, 60 years. And then lastly, Brandon, I think you went in an incredible campaign, is I would make sure that when I advertise for young people, I would use young people that they know. I would make the same kind of campaign advertising with a comment on a BET that Vallis is having with Jesse White, where I would take the people that they identify with and have them endorse you and explain to them, to their peers and their generation, why you're the best candidate. And Godspeed, and I hope to see what Al's thing, and you and I get a chance, you and Hatch get a chance to talk there. God bless you.
We are pulling for you. Now, you know, I don't put my thumb on the scales, but you know how I feel about you. So, Commissioner Johnson, is there anything else you'd like to say before you run?
Well, just thank you. All of the advice and love that continues to come. Just know that there's a place for it, and I receive it.
Wait a minute. Stop. I got Reverend Thurston there. Reverend Thurston?
Oh, all good.
Praise the Lord. No, praise the Lord. No. Say it. What you got to say?
Hey, Brandon, continue to share the details as you're doing. For those of us who are intelligent, that stuff matters. And then I'll remind you, the church has left the building. Our young people, they ain't coming to the building, but they're at the rooftops, they're at the brunches, and so maybe some pop-ins or getting some of us to be your delegates in those spaces to push your message where the people are. Let's do that as well.
Wait a minute, and Commissioner, on the edges of these campuses, Kennedy King and Chicago State, where Congressman Jackson taught, hey, it's, just doing these pop-up drive-by rallies. The final word belongs to you, Commissioner, soon to be Mayor.
Well, thank you again. I'm really, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate the love and the advice and the support. This has been an incredible journey for my wife and our 3 children, and we've embraced it. And the communities across the city of Chicago have expressed, and we certainly I know that our campaign has to do some more work in all of our communities. I'll be on the southwest side of Chicago this afternoon and into the evening, making the case, headed to the south side of Chicago as well, moving around the city of Chicago. What a beautiful place. And unfortunately, though, however, there's been a drought and in too many communities. And what I am working to do in this moment is to reroute the rivers so that it can flow in an equitable way throughout the city of Chicago. And there's enough of us to help do that. Again, this is a multicultural, multi-generational movement. Since February 28th, we've had over 1,000 people sign up to volunteer. We are now upwards of almost 1,000 individual donors, raising on an average anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000 a day, with the average contribution around $75 to $80. People believe in this movement. There are people all over the country that are calling in. Congressman James Clyburn has sent the check, and had a phone call with Congressman Robin Kelly, and having a conversation with Congressman Garcia this evening. I'm so grateful. Senator Elizabeth Warren has weighed in on this race, and she supports me. Had a great conversation with one of the daughters of Chicago, but her work has been in Massachusetts. Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. There's so much excitement. Sheila Jackson Lee, Maxine Waters, Martin Luther King III. I mean, literally all over the country. Reverend Barber, who has been an intricate leader in the Poor People's Campaign. This is exciting, you all. And as we know, on April 4th, we will be commemorating the life and the legacy of our dear brother, Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. And we are seeing the manifestation of the labor rights movement, the civil rights movement, as he had hoped to come together and describe the potential that would have. And we are on the precipice of actually the full manifestation of that potential. And I'm, again, humbled and honored, and wherever I can be in the city to make this case, you let me know, and we'll get there. So BrandonForChicago.com. Let's continue to do the most radical things that this world could ever embrace, and that's to love one another. And I'm looking forward to leading this city. Thank you, Santita, for your love and support.
You got it.
Again, I look forward to you all talking to you again. Thank you so much.
You know you got it. Sending you
Brandon,
much love.
Brandon, we need buttons. Brandon, we need buttons. Doesn't work like buttons. Get buttons. Give us buttons.
You got it. You got it. I will send them on your way.
Yeah, please send them. Just drop them off. Drop them off at my place. We'll distribute them. I promise you. Sending you much love, and thank you so much for being with us today. Mwah. God bless you. Well, everybody, does anyone have anything else that they'd like to say as Commissioner Johnson leaves, and as we go on about our way today? Anyone?
I do want to thank him for his time.
Absolutely.
And his empathy. And his empathy.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank each of you and all of you collectively for all that you have, for all that you all have done today. I mean, really, you make the show. And I wanted him to hear support from you. I wanted him to hear from you. It's always good to be able to interface, and you never know, something you might say just, might spark another idea. And I just want to thank you all. I want to thank you all for all of your contributions. Just beyond this campaign, you know, I love your ministry, Pastor Thurston. I'm so excited to see all that you're doing, and I cannot wait to see all that God is going to use you to do. Dwight, God has been using you for a mighty long time, bringing young people along, but also just spurring us and being the great challenger that all of us need. Attorney Erin Connolly, my newfound sister, I just thank God for you every day, and I'm so inspired by you as I watch you raise your son, as I watch you move into building, continuing to build your family, and yet making the time to take your child, to take your children out to canvas and to make this world a better place. And that's what I'm talking about. Reverend Jeanette Wilson, who wears so many hats, pastor of a church, Rainbow Push, wearing a million hats around there. Thank God for you every single day. And Xavier, the man that you have become and the man that you continue to become, from that boy I could cry that we saw on the campaign trail. So I don't know what you saw in Reverend Jackson, but I'm glad it sparked something in you, and it really helped you to tap into your greatness. And I thank God for you every day. And I'm glad that you got that coffee today. 2 jolts. I just don't want your heart to palpitate.
God bless you.
Please, that crude that my sister-in-law will make. Lord have mercy. You're like, what is this? This ain't coffee. This is a drug. What is this? But I'm sending you so much love. But I tell you what, so many people have enjoyed everything that you all have said. But you know, I haven't had you on the show before, but you know that you have an open door, and this is your new home, Xavier. What do you want to say before we go?
It was just great reconnecting. It's not a coincidence that we're reconnecting during this rebuilding. I call it the rebuilding of the movement. And I feel the energy, and that energy that Brandon brought just brought chills to me. And somebody said, I think it was Aaron, you can't stop the momentum. And there's a momentum going on here, and that's powerful. And just thank you, and I think the panelists also. It was just great. Proud to be a part of it.
Oh, look, I'm proud. I just cannot say. Dwight, he was on Reverend's campaign at 17 and running to be a delegate. I can just tell you. And to watch him develop, I mean, reconnecting with him last night, I just said, oh my gosh, I remember you. You were a boy. But I mean, no one argued the case for Reverend Jackson to become president more strongly. He traveled with Jonathan and with our family. Well, this is the little secret. He was young, and so we had to make sure that he was going to be okay. Sorry.
Right.
Sorry. When my parents found out how old you were, because I called my mom, she said, oh my goodness. She said, but let me tell you what we did. And she said, when she found out how young you were, she said, no, he needs to be around us. Don't want to crowd him out. But she said, but I'll crowd. She said, I don't care about crowding somebody out. Said, but that having been said, that's why we made sure that he was traveling with us, so we could make sure that he was going to be all right. And so, thank you, and just
thank you.
Thank your family for letting you become part of ours, because that's what you are.
No, I appreciate that. That means so much to me. Thank you all.
Well, I tell you, I just love you all, and thank you so much. Thank you for making this a wonderful show, Effie Rolfe and Eric Penn and Jewel. Jewel, I'll see you up in New York next week. I'm going to let you know. You need to send me your information so you can come over to the Wall Street Project. I want you to be a part of that. And I got to reach out to Marnie so she can be a part of that too. But I'm sending all of you so much love. That's right, family. My god brother, Andre Dwight.
Yeah, I love the idea of Stephen being a surrogate, and I hope that we can facilitate that, because I think he would be dynamic, and he can influence a lot of people. And
Absolutely.
They should person around him when use him offend, but he was just your right.
So
we should try to push that, facilitate that.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? Let's you reach out to Pastor Hatch, who I need to reach out to him to wish him a happy birthday. And I'm going to reach out to Commissioner Johnson, because I think that you would be a great surrogate, too, Everybody here, to that, of course, Xavier has his own restrictions because of the work that he does, the business that he does. But everybody, I know you can find some surrogates, but I think that Pastor Thurston knows where to go. He knows whom to speak to, and that needs to happen. And God knows he can preach. Whew. So, you want him, because he's going to make that case for him.
Thank you.
Yes, Lord. Yes, my father was having him break down the text yesterday, because, he wanted to hear how you broke it down. I was like, oh, we're going to be here all day. All day. And you were like, no, Matthew, this is what we said. He said he was very impressed. He said, I think he's
Steve, give me a call if you can, Stephen.
Okay, I will do.
Okay.
Sending you all much love. All of you, Dave, Effie. I mean, boy, I just love you, Morning Stars, and I want to thank you for being part of my life. Like I said, during COVID, it is just my honor to be with you, and I want you to know that you honor me by allowing me to be a part of your life. And just thank you for letting me and Dwight and Pastor Thurston and Xavier and Aaron and Reverend Jeanette Wilson and CK and Daryl and John Nichols and Dr. Max Wolf and on and on and on. You let us be a part of your lives, Dr. Shanina Knight and Dr. Deborah Holden, Pam Morris, Reverend Tisha Dixon Williams, Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch, Reverend Darius Brooks, and just, oh my gosh, and Pastor Vicki Johnson, and just thank you for embracing us, and thank you for letting us be a part of your life. We are family, everybody. I love you. God bless you, and have a wonderful day. And I love you. Pastor Thurston, you have to try not to call you by your first name publicly. Pastor Thurston, I love you. I love you.
Me too.
And it was wonderful hearing your sermon yesterday. Effie Rolfe said, she said, we learned so much, and that's the point. And then you can make up your own minds. Really. You can. But I do hope that you will vote for someone who is going to work for you, someone who sees the community as people, not as corporate assets. That is very, very important. And I will continue to have Paul Vallis on the show and will treat him respectfully. That having been said, I'm from a humble people. My parents came to Chicago with no name. And when they literally drove into Chicago, my mother looked up at these tall buildings, and she looked at my father. I was one, and my mother was pregnant with my brother Jesse, who you all ended up sending to Congress. And she said, Jesse, do you think the city's so big? Do you think we'll get to know anybody? He said, baby, we're just going to work. And you all have embraced us, and you've loved us, and you've fed us, and you've housed us, and you've clothed us. And it's my honor to do everything I can to serve you. I love you, everybody. God bless you. Have a wonderful, 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 wonderful day. And thank you, Devin, for a fantastic show. He's just the best. So, WCPT, thank you for letting me be on this air. It just means a lot. I love you all. Have a great one. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.